I have this super easy job today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, where I came from, and some of the secrets of my success at high levels that I thought were really important looking back in my career. And that's it. So hopefully I'll be able to answer some questions. Please remember that this is a discussion. This isn't a, I'm not going to lose my place, so if anybody has a question as we're going, throw your hand up and we'll answer it and we'll keep on going. I really like the questions as they come. So I grew up in West Hartford, Connecticut, and I was in second grade. I had a very active parents. My dad was the president of Northeastern Ski Association, so any little ski house or hen house or anything you could ski down, my parents would drag me up, and I went to all over Vermont and all these different places. I was in second grade, and we had this teacher, Mrs. Skirmerhorn, and she was a really good-looking teacher. And I was just like, this lady's awesome. And one day she told me I was special. And it was right before a holiday. I mean, the bus driver, the milkman, the garbage man, my grandparents were in town, everybody, I told her how special I was. I was super excited about that I was special. After the holiday weekend, after I spent telling everybody how great I was and I was special, I went back to school and she put me into special ed. And there's nothing special about special ed in the early 80s. And so dyslexic and ADD were words that were used on a regular basis. Looking back, I think that we just didn't understand the fact that I couldn't sit still after eating a bucket of ice cream, and there was a lot of things we didn't understand that we understand today. But after I was placed into special ed, it was a real curtain dropper for me, a real darkness. It was awful. I don't know how to describe it, but every morning I would get up, my dad would wake me up. I love my dad, I'd be super excited, and then it would hit me. Oh, the bus is coming. Please, 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 please. All like that hour and a half before the bus came, I would say, make the big bus come before the short bus. Because I was put in a short bus, and I was going to all these special ed programs. And during the wonderful time that I was there in West Hartford, Connecticut, the educational system, there was 3 smaller schools, and it got moved around all 3 schools. So I was fully embarrassed, all 3 schools, from pickup, all the different pickups, to getting to the different schools, dropping off in the middle of the school and having to walk in. I remember lunchtime being lined up in front of all the other kids. One of the things that really sort of kept me going was the fact that my parents put me on all these sports programs. So I had a basis of friends in hockey and lacrosse that I could turn to. But my early education in West Hartford was very horrifying. And, it went all the way, I went to high school, and I went to a very large high school. I think we have in my class there was 1,100 kids or something like that in just my class. And it was a big transition. I remember how important it was having those teammates to look after me. And my first day, I'll never forget it. I was walking around trying to figure it out, and some class guy that was a little bit of a jackass decided to pick on me a little bit, and he jacked me up against the locker. And I remember thinking to myself, my feet are dangling, and I'm going, high school, this sucks. I don't like this at all. And then all of a sudden, the guy that was jacking me up on the locker and giving me a hard time, all of a sudden he got me up even higher. I was almost to the roof, and I'm like, what's going on? And the guy that was jacking me up all of a sudden got really scared, and all of a sudden I realized a teammate had come by and saw what was going on and jacked us both up and said, hey, you got my teammate up there. You better drop him. And this is Jimmy Shea, and say hi, and if you ever mess with him again, there's going to be a problem. And boy, I tell you, that having that support was really, really great, that friendship, and it was a lifesaver for me going through the school. West Hartford, Connecticut was a great place. After that, I decided to, two of my friends went to West Point, and a couple to Yale, it's great schools. But I was in special ed. I never took a language, mathematics, history, language, nothing. I was greased up and put through the system. And after high school, I was like, what am I going to do now? So I went off and played junior hockey for a little while. For the Junior Olympics, and when I was bigger and stronger, and knocked heads with Division I players and professional farm teams for a while. That was a lot of fighting, not a lot of hockey, but it was a good, it was a tough experience. After that, I moved up to Lake Placid, New York. Lake Placid, New York is, it's surrounded by this huge Adirondack Park, and Lake Placid has about 2,500 people in it. So, small town. It's Hicksville. The haves, the have-nots. And as I got going, I started working in the restaurant business and working with the local kids. And the local kids, their dads were lumberjacks and caretakers and generally really, really hardy, tough individuals. I started hanging out with these guys, and I call them the wild boys. I'm writing a book, and these guys didn't understand or value rules, and there's a fine line in life where you realize, well, if I do that, I'm going to get hurt. Those guys used to take that line and sort of just push it one way and then fling into the danger zone, So anything dangerous, they love to do. So I'm in Lake Placid, hanging out with these sort of rough and tumble guys, and they worked in the restaurant business, and the bars didn't close until 3 o'clock. Small town, drinking is pretty much the biggest pastime there. And we started having all these conversations with this other group. There was an Olympic training center in town, and every 2 weeks during the summer, there would be a different group of people coming through. The volleyball team would come by, the boxing team would come by, the rowing team would come by, and for 2 weeks, and 200 kids would come into town. Out of the 200 kids or so, there was always a couple, jackasses that would cause trouble in town, and my friends were sort of the hard-nosed guys that sort of defended everybody. So we used to have a lot of conversations with these guys, and so when I say conversations, I mean fights. And we were going at it with these guys all the time, and finally one of my friends says, these guys are always messing with us and, messing with our friends and picking on, these younger kids, and let's mess with them. Let's build a bobsled, let's go out to the bobsled run, and I'm like, okay. And so I got involved with bobsledding. And Lake Placid, we were totally flawed from the start. I mean, we really didn't have a chance. Again, we worked in the restaurant business. The bars didn't close till 3 o'clock. The sled had to be up on top of the hill at 7 o'clock for an 8 o'clock race. So you could see, you do the math. We were up there having fun. And I was up there at the track. My mom was head of EMT, and about a month into it, and I was at the track watching these bobsleds zoom down the track, and they'd make this big sound like a bus coming down this road, and all of a sudden I heard this like screeching and a bang, and I heard ow, and then I heard bang and ow, and all of a sudden some jackass is going down on a lunch tray, and I'm like, what is that? And I hear my mom say, don't ever try that. That's skeleton. Don't ever try that. So, when my mom tells me not to do something, it's it's a matter of minutes before I sign up. And so I went and I signed up. I found this coach that was really trying to get me into skeleton, and I started doing skeleton. I flew myself down the track, and they say that bobsled is the champagne of thrills in sports. Well, skeleton is the moonshine, because you go down and you don't have any protection and you hit yourself and it just cheese grades you. I mean, it's a really tough learning curve. You saw the video. Those are all the best guys in the world. You don't see the crashes and the not so great things in the world, but it's a very dominated sport by Europeans. So anyway, so I get involved with sliding, and I'm in Lake Placid, and all of a sudden, my first year, I found myself at the World Championships on my home track at Lake Placid, and I finished second. I was like, whoa, this is wow, I could do something. The only problem is nobody knows what skeleton is, but I was like, wow, I could do something in this sport. So the transition from being with the wild boys and the crazy guys and the up all night drinking and stuff faded away, and I went to started spending a lot of my time at the Olympic Training Center. I dropped into, a real work, a real obsession, a real desire to do well. My grandfather was, a double gold medalist, and my father was an Olympian, and I thought maybe I'd go playing hockey, but that didn't work out, so I didn't think that I'd ever go to the Olympics. And I committed myself. I stopped drinking. I started caring more. I'd show up at the Olympic Training Center every day, at 7 o'clock, and I'd be there all day, and then I'd come back, work at the restaurant, make enough money to go off to Europe. Most of my career, I had to pay for my entire World Cup sliding. That means the hotels, the cars, the rentals, just everything to get over there. It was a a very difficult road being in Europe when you didn't, remember, I didn't learn German when I was in school, math, history, all that stuff, and it was a real struggle, but it was something I really wanted to do. As I got leading up to the World Cup, I was so new at everything, but I had some really good lessons from my grandfather. I remember being on the World Cup, and the first thing I noticed being at these tracks was all the athletes would go up the track, they would do their runs, and then they would leave. And at the track, there's a lot to getting these courses ready, and a lot of maintenance and things. There's probably 20, 30 guys out there, doing all the ice and doing all these things. And it struck me that nobody was talking to any of these guys. Nobody would say anything to the track workers. And I'm like, they know the track better than anybody else. They've been doing it for 20 years. And so I started a relationship with these track workers. I saw them one day, and they were celebrating. They had a case of beer, a bunch of guys in Germany, and they were celebrating because somebody had just set the track record. And so there was a tradition in Europe that you give them sodas or beer or something nice once, because they've done such a great job getting the track record ready. I saw that, and I went to the store, and I came back about half an hour later, and I plopped down a case of beer, German beer. And they said, 9, no track record for you, 9. No. And I was like, no, next weekend. I got an interpreter in there. I said, I'm going to break it next weekend, and they're like 9. And I actually broke the track record, and then I started this friendship with these guys, and they started to help me. And it was just a really, really important part of my sliding. The World Cup kept on going. I kept on representing my country. It was a tremendous honor to go over to Europe and to be a U.S. athlete. My grandfather from the 1932 Olympics, he said, when you're over in Europe, never forget that you're an American, and never forget that they're always watching Americans. They will always pretend they're not watching, but they will always watch you, and make sure you represent the country well. And I really took that seriously. I had a lot of great friends. I worked really hard. The World Cups was a great experience, going to all these different countries. It was not easy, but we got it done. I was lucky to be successful. I was probably from my first year on, my second year on, I was top 5 in the world. Usually, pretty much almost all the World Cups, but it came from a lot of hard work. After the World Cup, and that led up to the Goodwill Games, which was a lot of fun, and then I came out to Salt Lake City, and I had a lot of pressure on me by the Germans and France and everybody, like, hey, the Salt Lake Olympics, they're in your hometown, you have to get a skeleton in the Olympics. At the point, skeleton was not in the Olympics. And I told the story before, and I think I'll just tell it again real quick. It's funny how life happens. You have to be ready for things. You have to act. My grandfather always said, you have to, when the bus comes, you've got to be willing to get on it. And I was up at the track, and I had been calling Mitt Romney. He just got in. He was about 2 weeks on the job every day, and people are like, he's not going to answer you, buddy. Sorry, he's busy. And I was up at the track, and as you saw on the video, we wear these tight suits, right, to get on. And they're hard to get on, so, and you get little underwear on, but I'm up at the top of the track. I got the suit on. I get one ankle on. I get the other ankle on. And I'm sitting there, and I got my head down, and 2 really nice dress shoes come up in front of me. I'm still wrestling with my right foot there a little bit. And remember, this is changing room. And I look down, and the 2 dress shoes come up, and I look up, and he goes, "Are you Jim Shea?" And I look up, there's Mitt Romney, all dressed up, looking good, just this nice suit. And I'm just like, this is my chance. I jump up. He tries to stop me several times in the conversation, but this was my moment. I had the right person. I needed to give the right pitch, and I said, hey, look, I knew he was a financial guy, so I didn't say skeleton deserves to be in there. I said, how much money would you make if you added 3 disciplines, women's skeleton and women's bobsledding, to this facility? How much money does this facility cost? Thinking that Mitt wouldn't know, because he's only in the job for 2 weeks. Mitt goes, actually, Jim, the track cost $82 million, 375, right down the line. I go, how much did the bobsled track cost? And he goes, Well, that costs $52 million, And I go, well, how much money would you make if you added 3 disciplines? Because you just spent all this money on this stuff, and, you could really add a value here. I think the U.S. are going to do well. And he goes, and Mitt says to me just in a real calm voice, and he says, Jim, I don't know, but I promise you I'll get back to you. Can you pull your pants up? I want to introduce you to my wife, Ann. Nice to meet you, Ann. And that's how I met Mitt. A week later, but this is what I love about Mitt. He's a business guy. He doesn't forget about stuff, ever. And so I was up there, and a guy named Fraser Bullock and Mitt Romney came in when I was up there changing, getting ready. I'm just like, oh my God, Mitt's back. And he comes up and he looks at me, he goes, Jim, hey, I looked into that. Those are some nice numbers, with a big smile. And he goes, how do we make that happen? And I connected him with somebody else, and Skeleton got in the Olympics, and I was able to win a gold medal. And in the video right here, at the end, I'm getting congratulated by all these people, and somebody kept on poking me, Of course, I didn't turn around, but somebody kept on poking me and poking me and poking me. Actually, eventually I did, but it was Mitt down there, and he was laughing at me. He goes, you convinced me to put Skeleton in the Olympics, and you go and you win the medal. And Fraser and Mitt have become great friends, and but to that point is you have to be able to get on that bus. Sometimes you have to be out of your comfort zone. You never know when things are going to happen in life. And I've learned through certain people never to be afraid. Sometimes that sort of bites me because I told you I used to hang around with the guys, these guys from Lake Placid called the Wild Boys, and I call them the Wild Boys. And we used to love to jump off cliffs and do all kinds of stuff. Like, yeah, you can make it, go ahead, try it. Then I'll try it, They were the crazy kids. And when I went to Europe, I had that in me where I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared to roll up to the toughest track in the world and be like, oh man, the guys back home would love this. And the Europeans were like, your friends at home must be crazy. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. And so we get into Salt Lake. It becomes the Olympic sport. I was able to come here and do well. I would like to tell you why Salt Lake is different than a lot of Olympics. The IOC has come back and they said the Salt Lake Olympics is the most successful Olympics in history. A lot of the head guys will tell you that. And the reason is the people of Utah. The people of Utah came out and they were excited. I went to Torino and you wouldn't know that anything was going on. They had their signs up there trying to sell watches and blah, blah, blah. Salt Lake, we had more volunteers, people in yellow coats and green coats, and if you looked confused for a minute, somebody would come up to you and say, hello, my name is so-and-so, can I help you? Then they would say it in German and France and whatever until they got to with them, and they'd help people. People came here and they were so impressed by how friendly and helpful and nice everybody was. You go to some German cities, it's not always real nice. And I think that is something to be very, very proud of. The Olympics are going to come back here, according to Fraser Bullock. I'm super excited. We're going to have some amazing things happen with that. So I was able to go to the Olympics. I was able to do well, super lucky. My father, after the Olympics, used to say, boy, you are one lucky boy. You're lucky. And I used to get mad. And I'd be like, yeah, come on, Pop, I really worked hard. And he goes, you're lucky. And he's right. There's so many athletes out there. There's so many things that could happen along the way. It's really, it's winning a little bit of a lottery ticket. I did work hard, but there was a lot of grit and getting there. So before I want to talk a couple of reasons for my success. But after the Olympics, the most important thing that I got going on right now is about 3 years ago, my wife decided that she wanted to go to Key West. And I said, what about the kids? And she goes, oh, no, I want to go without you. And so, I've recently got divorced, and I have 3 young kids. And I'll tell you, man, being in Utah is the place I want to raise my kids. It's the people, it's the companies. We're kicking butt right now in Utah. It's amazing, going all the way back to, past governors that have started the economic drive and bringing everybody out of California, and things are really rolling here, and it's super exciting to watch. This is definitely where I want to be. My kids are in my world right now, and so I'm starting over, and life is good. I got 3 young kids, and they keep me, I go to bed early. I'm tired. I also like to go in over some of the reasons I've been successful. So when I say success, there's a difference between being good and being successful. When I was an athlete, I was playing hockey in Connecticut, and it was one thing, and then high school hockey, then you go to a different level, and then you go to a different level. But at high levels of success, it is a whole different world. Going from being the best guy in the country to winning the national championships to be the best guy in the world is just such a jump. Because there are so many other people that are completely obsessed with the sport. And I remember every morning waking up in Lake Placid, and my alarm clock would go off, and I would know I had a routine. I would stretch in bed, then I'd hit the floor, and I'd do a bunch of push-ups, a bunch of sit-ups, and then I would get on a bicycle and go around the little lake there, particularly because my executive director was bringing his daughter to school, and I wanted to make sure he knew every morning I was up and I was working. And then I would show up at the Olympic Training Center, and I'd be there until 4 o'clock, and then I would go work, and I did it every day. It's a full-blown obsession that you need to manage, and you got to be careful it doesn't drive you crazy. If you see a lot of athletes that are sort of tweaking, just they're not very good in public, it's because that's all they do. It's like, I hate to categorize it, but a surgeon, they so much school that they're getting yelled at so long that their social skills sometimes aren't all the best. The process of me getting into all this was when I dropped into a serious, I want to make this happen type of mode, everything changed in my life. My friends changed, the people I hung out with changed, and I didn't care who I talked to. As long as I knew they were talking about going faster, the steel, the ice, the friction, aerodynamics, any of that stuff, I was all in. I don't care who I was talking to, the garbage man or whoever. And I think that once you drop into that obsession, you can really have some great success. Now, getting the success and holding on to it is a whole different thing, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. So one of the first real reasons, of my success is really, really trying hard. It's more like caring more than others. I'll give you an example. A lot of the time, go up to the track, everybody would slide, take their 2 runs and leave. And, when I first started sliding in Lake Placid, it was a little different. I'd take, 5 runs, and then I wouldn't leave. I would go back out and I would walk the track, because every time you go down, all the different people would leave these little grooves on the track. And so I would just go down and I'd put my head on the ice and I'd be looking at it and look down the track, look up the track. And the obsession of it just grew and grew in me. And it was a very, very difficult thing. Good equipment. As you get better at whatever business you're in, your life, your family, or in sports, having the best equipment is critical to doing really, really well. I started off with a really bad sled. It was a piece of junk. It was like I was racing Ferraris I had an old beat up Volkswagen. But I was a little bit like Happy Gilmore. I had the fastest starts in the world. I was really fast. But once you start getting the best equipment, it puts you at a different level. And I didn't want to do it because it was expensive. And I put it off at first. And it's a lesson that I've learned, that you just cannot do that. You have to go for the best equipment to get the best results. If you want to do it for a long period of time, you might be able to go out and win one or 2 races, but if you want to be overall World Cup points guy and beat everybody on all the different things, you really have to get that equipment. Another thing that I learned was, I say the bar is always rising. You might have had a great year, but as soon as you have a great year, everybody else wants to beat you. So you have a big bullseye on your target. It's absolutely critical to remember. I sort of think of it as like a bag of tricks. I have a bunch of new things that I want to try every year. But I know, and because I've seen other athletes do it, they come back and say, well, I had a great year last year, I'm going to do the same thing, and then come back and I'm going to win it again. No way. Because life, this new bag of tricks, everybody's trying new things. The speeds are always getting faster. Business is always getting harder. You have to sort of keep an eye on what's coming on, new ways to do it, become faster, stronger, and better. It's critical. One of my favorite sayings is, every problem is an opportunity in disguise. I don't care what type of business you're in, I don't care what you're doing in life, there are always problems. The truly, truly successful people that I know love problems. Love them. Because that's an opportunity to do it better. I'll give you an example. My coach and I made this new sled that was really fast. I went to the Goodwill Games and I crushed it. I won the race. It was 4 heats. I almost did it by 2 seconds, which is huge. And the week after, I was over there with my coach, and we were talking, and I'm going over to Europe in a couple weeks. And he goes, well, that sled's really fast. And I go, yeah. And then he walked over and he kicked it and bent it, just wham, slammed it. And I was so upset. I was yelling and screaming at him, like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. There's a little pushing and shoving. I was very, very upset. And he turned around and he said, look, now it's broken. Now we're going to fix it. I can't be with you in Europe, so I need to teach you how to fix it now. And I was like, yeah, but it was fast. He goes, we'll make it faster, but you need to learn that lesson. And it was a great lesson because, when you're in Europe, transportation, and sometimes your sled gets dropped and you need to fix it. It was a really important lesson, to every problem. And there was a lot of problems for me going through. I was a very brash type of guy that that didn't like bullies, and and I didn't like being pushed around very much, and I wasn't afraid to push back. Gritty, I think some people call me sometimes. I can be, but. Going through, I just remember all these problems. Negatives into positives is I remember there was one coach that didn't like me very much. He was sort of into steroids, and he got caught for steroids, and he was still the strength and conditioning coach, and I was like, this is crazy. Why are we hiring all these athletes that are tested positive for steroids? And so I didn't really gel. I came off a bar stool in Lake Placid. I didn't come out of the NFL where he was looking for his people. And it was a real negative experience. And so every day I noticed that he would make fun of me and at the Olympic Training Center. And so I started sitting by myself with some cooler, friendlier, nicer, positive people. I quickly noticed that I wasn't having the workouts that I was when he was sort of giving me all this negative energy. So every day I would go sit next to him and get harassed a little bit. And boy, I tell you, I went into that gym fired up, man. I mean, and I used to remember that my image of him, every time he'd say something bad about me, he would have an image of him having a log on the back. And he would just take this log over and he would put it down in the fire. And it was a very negative guy, a very negative type of experience, but I would take that negative and turn it into a positive. And every time he would say something bad, I would think of that, putting a log on the fire. I'd tell you, that coach kept a bonfire going for like 3 years. And there's always bad situations in business where there's somebody you don't want to work with or whatever reason. But the ability to take those negative things and turn it into the positive is just a crucial part of my success. And so many people don't do that. In business, nobody wants to do business with somebody that's a jerk. If you know a nice guy or woman that's doing a great job, you always go to that person. You stay away from the jerk. It's super important to be nice to people, and that's the number one reason for my success. Looking back, is being nice to people. Would have never guessed high levels of competition, business, and in life, being nice to people has come back so heavy for me, in the sense where my teammates, because it wasn't a team sport, it was individual sport, and I was the number one guy, so it was hard for me because everybody wanted to knock me off. And I ended up being really close friends with 3 other people on the World Cup circuit. And those people were amazing. They, one guy from Japan, Austria, and Gregor Stali from St. Moritz. And those guys, we treated each other like teammates. We always encouraged each other. I never missed out on an opportunity to tell him what he was doing wrong in a good way. And he's my competition. But I tell you, that form and that pack we had was amazing as it goes back to my career and high levels of performance. Absolutely amazing. And that's sort of some of the reasons of my success. I got just a couple minutes and answer any questions about skeleton, the Olympics coming here, or anywhere back. Yes, in the back room.
So it sounds like your start was key originally, but in the movie or the documentary, your start wasn't what was making you win those Olympics. Is it possible to describe what you're doing while you're flying along that is helping you pick up time?
Sure. The question is, right before during the Olympics, they said that I had my injury and I wasn't doing all that well. I just whispered to Dave and some of the other guys. I said, yeah, they said it was a disappointing season at 5th. I'm like 5th in the world, but okay. Right before the Olympics, I had a vascular problem on my left leg, and it was I had 27% of the blood flow in my left leg. So for a guy like me that grew up around the Olympics, and the Olympics were really cool with my grandfather and father, and I get to the Olympic Village and I'm hurt, it sucked. It was awful. I got great advice from my coach. My coach said, I don't care how bad your leg hurts. All I need is 2 runs from you. Just do what you know how to do, and I guarantee you're going to win a gold medal. And I believed my coach a lot more than I believed myself at the time. Going down the icy track, we pull about 4.5 Gs. If you crash, you don't stop. You just keep on going. The speed suit does not rip off you. It burns off you, and you do like a hot potato sort of roll for a while. And you pull more G-forces than going up in the space shuttle. It's a really violent sport. It didn't show any of the crashes, but I've seen a lot of broken bones and a lot of, basically when you hit the wall, it just sort of, it's like going up against a sander. It just goes right through your skin, right through your bone, and just grinds away. Hopefully you don't stay there very long. Did that sort of answer your question about the race?
Well, I'm just curious, as you're flying down, what are you doing to pick up speed, to make up time?
So when you zoom down that icy track, it's a matter of not losing time. So if you ever played ice hockey or water skied, if you go sideways with your skis, you slow yourself down. So there's no skidding. You try not to skid. There's very, very little steering in that sled, which is a mean joke. In bobsled, you get to look up and you see everything. Down skeleton, you're just looking up there, like this, and it's a hard learning curve. But zooming down the track, I go about a mile. My fastest time from a dead stop to going a mile down the track is about 47 seconds. The first timing eye is 50 meters. I bent over pushing a sled. My fastest time on the start is about 4:70. So I had a really good start. But when you're zooming down that track, it's really about steering from point to point to point. And it's a little bit like a golf green where they change the track every once in a while, just as another cruel joke. And you have to really sort of figure all that stuff out. And the guy that has the least resistance, least amount of mistakes going down usually wins. Any other questions? Yes?
It's not uncommon for people in their careers to plateau after success. They desire to get to the next level, but can't figure that out on their own. Where did you experience that in your career? Before Olympics, after Olympics?
The question is, when do you plateau and what age group? So I was going to the Olympics, I was 37. What am I doing there? I didn't start until I was 25, so I was 7. I was drinking. I was in Lake Placid, waiting tables, tenant bar. So when I got in there, they didn't want anything to do with me because of my age. But I just worked them. I just didn't leave. That was a huge pain in the ass. I just would not go anywhere. You know, I mean, no, I'm a member here. I could slide and blah, blah, blah. You know, those guys are in the Olympic Training Center. I'm sliding. I should be here too. It was, skeleton wasn't in the Olympics, so it was not an easy transition. It wasn't like going to play soccer today. Well, okay, here are the teams, and here we go, have fun, and da-da-da. It was a very difficult, I had to push my way through. But I'm gritty. I'm tough. I like to get out there. I'm not afraid. You know, you tell me no, I sort of want to do it more. But my age was a factor. And most people, it's a factor for a lot of people. In sports now, it's with all this doping and all these different things in there, it's a totally different world. But the bar keeps on getting higher and higher for athletes. It's really tough out there. I'm glad I'm done. Any other questions about sliding? Yes, sir.
Jimmy, you mentioned growing up and kind of the special ed background. At what point did you think you could be an Olympian? Having two generations ahead of you, was it always in the back of your mind, like, I can do this?
No, you know, the special ed just crushed me. You know, it's just such a, you know, society breaker. You know, dark. You know, it's awful. I mean, you know, just to be, you know, I thank gosh I played hockey. You know, because you know, kids once I did get to a school, they realized you can only call me, you know, retard so many times before I put my elbow through their mouth. But, you know, it was tough. You know, and.
Can we quote you on that?
But you know, and I was lucky, super lucky. I could walk out of special ed. I was good. Anna was in a wheelchair, you know, and other people, you know, when I was in high school, Samantha, her only thing is she had bad ears. But she had a big box on her and these big wires going out, and she looked like a little robot. And it was just because her hearing. And there's so many more greater things going on today. And the confidence it's a real difficult deal. I spend a lot of time with the younger kids because I think it's super important. Yes, sir.
What would you say to a parent of a dyslexic child?
What would I say to a parent of a dyslexic child or ADD or anything? I would tell your child that he's smarter than most people.
Yeah.
Honestly. I love this. God is fair. He gives everybody strengths and everybody weaknesses. And it's your ability, you know, it's your responsibility to go out there and work your strengths. My strengths, because I don't read. I hate to read. And it's crazy, but I developed better people skills. I'm much better at going out and talking to people and having a dinner and figuring things out. You know, everybody has their advantages. I would tell them that they're super smart. If you look at the top business guys in the U.S. today, there's 40% of them are dyslexic. So, yes?
What do you do now? I mean, you obviously won the gold medal. Sound like you didn't have much of a college background. What do you do now professionally?
So I was really wanted to be a family guy because I was away all the time, and I just wanted to have a family. I got married, you know, an ER doctor, and she's like, you just stay at home with the kids, you know, and you run the house, and so that's what I did. Boy, it's tough. You know, I go to bed tired at 10 o'clock, you know, I'm tired, my 3 kids. But what I'm going to do now, I'm starting over. I'm scratch starting over. In my divorce, I wanted one thing only, and I paid a really high price for it, but I'm super happy and I got my kids. So now I'm starting over. I'm selling real estate, and you guys come to Park City. You want to find a dream house? I'm going to put you in it. I'm telling you. 2 more questions at the end, then we'll go. Yes, lady at the end there. Yes.
I want to know, so as an Olympic athlete, it requires such a deep, like, mental focus and having yourself in, like, the highest mental state. So what is that part of your routine, or what is it that's helped you maintain that healthy mental state to be able to be focused and keep going?
So the question is, what mental state is it? What has it taken for me to maintain that high level of concentration and to be successful? Is that it?
Yeah, and is there something in your daily routine that helps you keep that high level of mental focus?
So one of the things that really helped me is because because I'm super nice. When I first got on the World Cup tour, I'd go out there and I'd be so happy to see everybody. I didn't care about winning. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Good to see you, you know. And then my grandfather said, you know, boy, you work so hard and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I remember coming back from the World Cup and saying, I did well, I did well, I did well. And my grandfather just sort of looking at me, sort of funny. And he goes, finally he looks at me, he goes, how come you didn't want to win? And I felt really stupid, you know. I'm like, so I went back and I did the same thing, but I changed my mental aspect. I did not want to go do well. I did, you know, in business, you say, I want to do really well. It's a terrible thing to say. You got to say, look, this is how what well means to me. You know, I want to have, you know, $50 million in the bank. I want to have a house up in Deer Valley. I want to have this, this, and this. I think it's a mistake not to be really specific about what you want. And I used to concentrate on the things I want and how I'm going to get there. And then I'll also concentrate on some of the people that helped me got there. Some of those people were negative people. And I'd get out to the race and I'd say, I really want to beat this person. I knew he was the best because he was sort of being mean to everybody. I'm like, oh, I want to. It was hard for me to find that desire to win. So I basically found people that were doing really, really well, and I wanted to beat them. And I picked them out of the crowd, and I made it my mission to beat them every single time. So last question at the back, and then I'll get out of here because my light has gone off. Yes. So the question is on the bid for Salt Lake the Olympics coming back here. So real quickly after the Olympics, Mitt Romney went into politics. There's a local successful guy, which is probably the reason I'm here tonight, because they dropped his name, and I said, I'm coming. You know, I don't care what I get paid. I don't care what time. Just tell me what time I'll show up. Now, that guy was Fraser Bullock. Fraser Bullock went into the IOC, and he's been fixing their big problems for many years. So we have a direct line. The Olympics will come back here. To be truthful, the U.S. are not looked very favorably in the IOC. We bagged out of Boston. We've bagged out of a couple things that we should have done. We couldn't have prevented that, but when the Olympics come back here to Salt Lake, and they will come back here in a couple years, it is going to be absolutely amazing. It's going to bring light rail up to some of the ski resorts. It's going to bring so many wonderful things. I know there's a lot of growing pains, but think of the spaghetti bowl, all the highway systems that Denver doesn't have that we have. We've gotten so much from it before. And I'm really, really pushing and looking forward to it coming back again. We have all the facilities here. We need about another 10% to get some of these facilities up and running, just put new paint on them mostly and get ready to go. The ski resorts are super excited. All the NGBs are in line. It is something that will definitely happen. It's more of a point of waiting our turn. And so we're in line. We're in line. Well, listen, before I go, I just wanted to say one thing about the people that had me here today. Dave gave me a call and asked me to speak, and then he dropped Fraser Bullock's name, and I said, I'm there. I don't care. And that's it. I had a nice lunch with some of the head guys, and one of the things that I noticed about them most was all we did was talk about our families. And all they talked about was business and being better and making themselves better, and they're going in such a positive, great direction. It's a great group to be involved with. I look forward to doing more things with you in the future, just because you're so on point and you're making things happen, and you're a leader in the community. And I thank you very much for having me here today, folks. See you later.